we need a nuanced understanding of the values and the motivations that drive wildlife consumption, because this issue has complex historical, social, and cultural roots. For example, during the French colonial period, there was a great amount of wildlife being destroyed from hunting by the French in Vietnam as well as in Indochina. People buy and use wildlife because they want to display their status, their success. In this scenario, wildlife has a symbolic meaning.
I think it's this notion of like rarity and exclusivity. The producers very much play on this idea of caviar being a luxury. It's called black gold or Caspian diamonds and pearls. So there's all this imagery associated with it. You've even got people whose job it is to sell farmed caviar telling you that the wild stuff is better. So even though this legal market's flourished to meet demand, it's almost kind of pushed the high-end consumers to seek the super rare thing as well.
Oftentimes, illegal wildlife trade is occurring, in people's backyards, literally, in Europe and in North America. And that shifts the sort of focus away from other parts of the world. For instance, the Africa-Asia nexus we often hear about in thinking about a variety of kinds of illegal wildlife trade, and draws attention to locations that are often the sources of critiques about particular kinds of illegal wildlife trade.
Sturgeon are the most endangered group of species on the planet. There's estimates that the population in the Danube River Basin has dropped over the past 40 years or so to 1% of what it was originally. They're saying that 90% of the population in the Caspian has been decimated. Ultimately, I don't think it is the sort of thing that people are going to get on board with as an environmental campaign. Farming in the US has taken off, and the market there, I think people are more amenable to buying farmed caviar than perhaps in Europe.
These campaigns fail to integrate the cultural differences. Campaigns challenge long-standing beliefs in the efficacy of traditional medicine, which has been rooted in Eastern societies like Vietnam for thousands of years. There's a misalignment between demand reduction campaigns led by conservation NGOs and grassroots environmental movements. They also fail to engage consciously and properly with a vibrant civil society sector in Vietnam, because they focus too much on building relationships and working through the state structures. Because of this, it's not easy for these campaigns to achieve the wider societal acceptance.
If a species only grows in a very small or restricted area, as small, for instance, as 1 or 2 hillsides in Peru or Mexico or Brazil, and someone is interested in the wild harvesting of those species with the intention of international sale, they might have a really dramatic effect on the likelihood that that species will soon become endangered or even potentially go extinct. And so that's a really serious concern in terms of thinking about some of the impacts that illegal wildlife trade can have on these species. There are active programs and efforts within these communities to shift towards thinking about ways of facilitating more legal, sustainable, and equitable and socially just forms of trade, in particular with attention to ensuring that the economic value of these plants is making its way back to the countries of origin. And so really it's about kind of continuing to draw out conversations and engage with people about these kinds of practices.
The drivers of wildlife consumption are complex historically, culturally, and socially. So demand reduction campaigns in the context like Vietnam will be more effective if they are attentive to the historic context and social cultural differences.
Caviar is seen to be the epitome of a luxury animal product, when really all it is fish eggs. So until there's a displacement in perception and demand for wild caviar, I think it's going to be difficult to stop this illicit trade.